I'm Nic Harcourt, and welcome to Stories Behind the Sessions, where we speak with some of our favorite producers and engineers about their favorite recording sessions and the stories behind them. Joining us on this episode, I'm happy to welcome Neal Pogue. He's an LA-based Grammy award-winning producer, engineer, and mixer based in Los Angeles. Neal's work includes engineering and mixing Outkast's Speakerbox, The Love Below in 2004, which won a Grammy Album of the Year, and he engineered and arranged the horns on TLC's massive hit Waterfalls. He's also produced for such artists as MIA, Nelly Furtado, Earth, Wind and Fire, and has mixed for artists such as TLC, Pink, Nicki Minaj, Janelle Monáe, and Tyler, the Creator, and that's just a few. Can we talk about a couple of stories behind some of your sessions? I mentioned...
Yeah, if I can blow the cobwebs off my brain, let's go for it.
I mentioned in the intro, Waterfalls.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that was a funny story. That was a session that was like at 2 a.m. in the morning, something like that. Give or take. And the producers, Organized Noise, had the idea of bringing horns in, and it was late, so they called these horn players after midnight, which is not, which is unusual for horn players.
Sure.
But they came down, but no one had a plan. They were like, okay, what are we gonna do? And so I was pretty tired, and I said, you know what, I'm just gonna tell them what I hear. And so I just gave them the parts, told them what I hear, because I'm, me being well versed on, on certain groups that had horns, like Earth, Wind and Fire, and Kool and the Gang, and all these early, Brass Construction, or all these early horn, bands, the Ohio Players too. So all those horn bands are in my head. So that was easy for me to say, hey, let's try this, let's do this. So I came up with the arrangement for it, which was pretty fun. It was late, I was tired, but it became fun.
So when you're saying that you hear those things in your head, how do you then let somebody know what you're hearing so that they can do that setup for you?
Because the music always talks to me. So hearing that song and hearing the arrangement, I'm always hearing melodies inside my head. So that's what I heard. So whatever I heard, so what made sense to the song, that's what I told them to play.
Right. And then can you take us through the actual recording?
Right from the beginning?
Yeah.
Oh man, that started with a SB12 drum machine, and the incredible Ray Murray, who's 1/3 of Organized Noise, and they call me the silent partner of Organized Noise because I was always there with them.
Right.
I was like the fourth guy, but you got Ray, you got Pat, you got Rico, that's Organized Noise. And so Ray's just sitting there messing with the SB12, and he came up with this incredible drum thing, drum break, and it was incredible. It was odd because it has this loud snare roll, and I'm sitting there just waiting for him to finish the programming, and I'm just hearing this loud thing. I was like, wow, that's unusual. So he's back at the credenza, and I'm at the board, and I'm just sitting there, whatever, maybe looking at TV or whatever, and I'm hearing him program this beat. I'm like, wow, that's unusual, and I've never heard anything like that before. It goes that loud snare roll, and I didn't think he was going to keep it, but I was thinking, what's he going to do with that? but I thought it was cool, but he kept it. And then, and then he called in the bass player, he called in the keyboard. He said, who should we get for keyboards? And so, it was always a collaborative thing. And so it was always this list of musicians that we use in Atlanta, and, if this guy wasn't available, we'd call him, whatever. So, we called these guys down, and they didn't know what they were going to do.
Right. They're just coming in for a gig.
Yeah, coming for a gig. And it all came together. And this music, this thing that came together, it was beautiful. And the next phase was, okay, what's going to be written on top of this? Because the music was just amazing. And this incredible lyricist named Marquez, he wrote this incredible story, and it was innovative. It was different. It made sense to the time, because that's when the AIDS epidemic was happening during that time, and so it was pretty powerful.
Once you got the horn parts down, what's the next stage? What happened next?
We had to plan a mix session,
right?
And I remember that day because I was in there all by myself. Organized Noise never came down. And after we did the horn sessions, I noticed that we put them in different places in the song, but it all had to make sense. So at that time, I had an ASR 10 sampler. And so I had to take each part, blend it, sample it inside my sampler, and then play it in the parts, in the sections where I wanted it to be.
Right.
Because it was late, and I was like, yeah, just play this at this section, whatever. But at the mix session, I had to arrange the horns in the places that I thought it would sound good. So when you listen to Waterfalls, where you hear them playing is where I actually sampled it. I placed it there, and so I had to do that even before I started mixing. So that was a day of doing that,
right?
Of blending it, make sure that the levels were good, then put it inside the sampler, and then have to sit there and place it. So that was a day of that.
Right.
And the following day, I started mixing.
Right.
Then I had to start, work on the music first.
Right. So the first day was just really sort of fitting all the pieces together.
Right. That's what it was. It was, make sure that puzzle was right.
Yeah.
All the music was there, all the vocals were there, but the horns had to be placed.
Got it.
And but it was tedious, but it was a fun process because after you're done with it, you're listening to it, you go, okay, but there's no one else telling you if they like it or not. So I just did it, and next day I mixed it and sent it to the label. And at that time, there was L.A. Reid, who was the head of the Face Records at that time. So Organized Noise heard it, he heard it, and they loved it. I didn't have to go back and change anything, and I was like, wow, okay.
Right.
But it's so funny, till this day, I still listen to that mix and I want to change something. I always find something that I want to change. I don't know what it is right now, but if I hear, if I'm in Ralph's,
sure,
or if I'm in wherever there's some, that they have music, I'm walking somewhere, or if I'm listening on the radio or something. And
you're like, damn, if I could do that again.
Yeah, man. And I it's so funny. I listened to that song, and I listened how it was long hours, but it's so satisfying that people love it and they see it as a classic, because I worked so many hours on that song, and so it's validating.
Is that the mixer's curse, though, that you hear something later on and there's always something that you think about?
Yeah, and that's why I never go back and listen to it. Like after I send it, and if they like it, I don't go back and listen.
Although, as you said, if you have a song that sells 11 million copies, you're going to be hearing it in Ralph's.
Yeah, it's going to haunt you. So you better have something else to trump that later on.
Right.
Excuse me. And thank God I've had hits after that, and that's just one of the hits on the list. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
It's great that people come up to me and they still talk about that song, even though it's 30 years old. But and that says a lot when something is 30 years old, and they because I know I listen to songs that are 30 years old from a certain point, not from here 30 years, but somewhere else.
Sure.
Like some from the 60s or from the 70s or 80s. When you talk about 30 years or whatever. Yeah. But to have something that has aged and still be considered one of the top songs ever is pretty amazing. I think that Organized Noise and we really accomplished something.
Do you think about that legacy of the work? Do you think about stuff that you've made? Like, so now you can say, well, that's 30 years ago, and people still come up to me and say, hey man, I really dig what you did on that. Yeah. Do you think about that this stuff will just live on? I think Tyler's stuff will live on. I really do. I think the Maria's album will live on. Certain projects like that. The Outcast, the Love Below, that will live on. Mm-hmm. I think a lot that I worked on will live on because it's not trendy, and I take pride in that, So I don't work on a lot of trendy stuff. So. Right. A lot of the stuff you do is a reflection of the moment that it's made. Right. Yeah. But it's something that it will go on forever. Yeah. It'll just, Right. Yeah, and each generation will catch on to it, and then they'll love it, and people's kids, and so it's pretty cool. Yeah, it's great talking to you again, man.
Always.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
Real
I
pleasure.
feel like it's been 10 years, but it's only
Thanks.
been like probably 3-4 years.
Yeah, but it's like it's been a fog. I mean, I feel like 3 years passed by, and two of them were just I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know what happened in 2021. I mean,
Right.
you were busy, but
No, it's still a fog. I mean, it's almost like 2020 never happened. It's still
Yeah.
a fog. Even though I was busy, it's always a fog.
yeah. Keep on keeping on.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank you,
man.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.